Can you explain if you have a private company or how you go about doing this? Are you using your own money? Are there groups of people that are putting up resources for this? How does someone like you go in and rescue somebody? And is this a private operation?
So it is a private operation and it is funded by me. So I put a team together of former squadron members, and I had the great support of a friend of mine, Glenn Devitt from the Sentinel Foundation. We put a team together and flew over there and actually conducted the first successful overland rescue. One of the things that we had to do, since we were getting no help whatsoever from the American government and the State Department was working against us, is that I had memorized all the passport birth dates and had convinced one of the Taliban commanders that was at one of the checkpoints that I was the husband and the father of these 3 children, and memorized their, address, their date of births, hospitals, things like this, to have proof of understanding. And then a guy that was with us who, I'm a fluent Arabic speaker, but there's a guy who is a fluent Pashto, Dari, and Tajik speaker who was with us, who we had convinced that he was just the interpreter. And we played a bit of shell games with the satellite phones, where we were calling with the satellite phones because we had just heard that Kabul had got the order to shut down all the borders, and that we knew it would take a while for it to go from Kabul to Mazar-i-Sharif out to Kunduz, these little outposts. And so we had a little bit of time, but we called from multiple phones and had convinced the commander that Yusuf, one of the guys that was with us, was actually one of the negotiators in Qatar. Oh, wow. And that this family was part of that negotiation, and that would break down if we didn't allow these American family out. And so it was interesting, because when we went across, we had our full team originally, and they would only allow 2 of us to come over and then take hold of the physical custody of the children and the actual mother. Getting about 255 people out on the second rescues, and then probably about 3 dozen or so out in Afghanistan in 2021. So that's that family successfully rescued by myself and my team.
Afghanistan, Ukraine, Gaza, we were working on extraction of Americans out of that area. So we had a bunch of American blue passports who were this lady and her 3 children. They get them up to the gate. The team on the ground is communicating with the Taliban. They're like, Taliban saying, hey, have them call us. We call them. My interpreter, Yusuf, is like, yeah, we got clearance. You got to let them out. And we don't have clearance. We're just lying to the Taliban. And so they're like, well, who are you talking to? Like, and one of the guys is like, yeah, we're talking to the Qatari Taliban leadership. And the guy's like, well, have them call us. Well, we happen to actually have a Qatari sat phone. So my interpreter changed his voice, called him back from the Qatari number, acted like a Taliban leadership, and that's how the first Americans were extracted via ground route. And the U.S. government is long gone, and so we duped the Taliban, because Russia and China had basically shut down those borders. Nobody's allowed to leave. We got all the dual sits out. We got UK passport holders out. We got blue passport holders out. And so I sat there, I think it was like 8 weeks.
I have to ask, how do you get them out, Congressman? Do you fly them out, or do you have to take a car to the Jordanian border?
Well, to be honest, Stuart, I wish it was so easy as being able to fly them out. Many of these individuals that were getting out of the country has been waiting for 4 days. In some cases, I heard from a family today, they'd been waiting 6 days to try and get out of the country.
I'd gotten 32 out on the first day. I got 45 out on the second day.
Without any commercial flights in or out. So how do you pull that off?
No commercial flights.
I expected, an armored truck or something, a convoy of people. He shows up in a taxi and gets out and says, "Hey guys, I'm here," and us into Amman, and actually paid for our visas, all of our visas going over, paid for our hotel night there, but then our travel agent was the one who reestablished everything to fly from Amman to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, from Saudi Arabia to JFK Airport, and then we had some extra help to get some flights out of JFK back to Atlanta.
And this has been urgent. Explain to our audience, you just got this last group out, but barely.
Yeah, so the plane that just came in, we had 159 that was on this, and pretty much one of the last flights, as soon as ground operations and IDF started moving, they ceased all civilian aircrafts coming out of Tel Aviv.
With the Biden White House apparently is now charging Americans for their flights home, but you guys are not. Is that true?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And unlike the Biden administration is trying to get people to pay for their individual flights to get Americans to safety, I actually covered all of this on my own personal cost.
Can you explain, if you have a private company, or how you go about doing this? Are you using your own money? Are there groups of people that are putting up resources for this? How does someone like you go in and rescue somebody? And is this a private operation?
So it is a private operation, and it is funded by me.
Yet, where was the U.S. State Department? Well, I can tell you where I was on October 11th. I pulled out the first 32 Americans. October 12th, when I pulled out the next 45 Americans, going into Nazareth, Haifa, going into Jerusalem, going into the West Bank, going into other areas of Israel, getting out 255 before the State Department and all its might and all of its finances even got a single charter aircraft.
Congressman, our Aisha Husty, who is our congressional correspondent, you know her well, is reporting that she's got sources in the Senate telling her that there's a plan to potentially using charter aircraft get some 16,000 Americans out of Israel.
The U.S. is starting to organize charter flights and other transportation for Americans to leave Israel starting today.
If I wouldn't have come on to Fox and continue to blow up the airwaves, I don't truly believe that we'd even had that first charter that went out yesterday.
The reason that I keep doing these rescues is literally to shame their job. And Israel, when I finally got 96 out by ground, that's when they sent their first plane.
Congressman, are you planning to go back out there too yourself?
I am planning to go back out.
We went on to not only rescue them, but to also rescue 13 more after that, to include a 2-month-old baby and a 3-year-old little girl who had been hiding and locking themselves in a chapel.
Mills says he's self-funding the missions with help from organizations with the same goal.
Look, over the past 12 months, State Department's helped 70,000 Americans, 70,000 around the world. Not 1 or 2 or 9 or 10, 70,000. We evacuated 1,200 people.
Are you alluding that the 1 or 2 lives don't matter?
No, I'm giving you the quantity and scale of what we've done. We took out 1,200 people from Sudan at great risk. Our consular officers.
I actually commended you on Sudan. Do you remember this?
I didn't see that. I appreciate that. We took out thousands of people, offered up thousands of seats on charter aircraft from Israel. We are taking people out of Haiti. I appreciate what you've done, Congressman, but I think to demean the department the way you do, I think doesn't reflect the reality.
But it's not demeaning, it's providing facts. Isn't that what Mr. Crow had just talked about, was posing a question and getting facts? There were people asking and begging for help.
These consular officers are doing incredibly heroic work.
And I love what the State Department's doing. I admire them.
Mr. Mills, hold on a minute. Mr. Mills, I'm happy to do a second round. If you have more questions, Mr. Verma, you can continue.
I think look, I'd love to work with you. The budget that you all passed out of here last fall was a 25% cut to the State Department. 25% cut, while you're asking us to take on evacuation responsibilities of Americans. We do so much to warn Americans where they're going. Haiti has been a level 4 country where we actually tell people not only not to go, But if you go, our ability to get you out is going to be limited. So I'm looking forward to this conversation with you. I hope we can support the budget to allow us to do things in a more robust way.
Why wouldn't the State Department want to work in conjunction in a PPP-like scenario with organizations or individuals such as myself to support us, as opposed to, and maybe not in our situation scenario, but in others, where the State Department has actually intentionally worked against us to try and get us stonewalled and slow-rolled on approvals? Why wouldn't we want to work together in a more copacetic way?
I think look, you know, we talked the other night. We were trying to be helpful to you in what you were doing. What you're doing is very, very courageous. If something was to go wrong with your flight, I just want to be honest with you, we'd have to, some combination of the State Department and Defense Department would have to come and help you get out